Talmud in the Tractate of Shabbos, page 21, side B. It says like this. My Chanukah, what is Chanukah? The Torah Rabbanon, our rabbis learned, Chav Hei B'Kislev, on the 25th day of the month of Kislev, Yoimei the Chanukah Tamanya Inyan. We have the days of Chanukah, which are 8 days. It's an 8-day holiday. These 8 days, we do not eulogize the dead. We don't fast, take fast days. Why? What is the miracle of Chanukah? Says the Gemara, when the Syrian Greeks came into the Holy Temple, Timu kol hashmanim, they defiled all the oil that was in the Holy Temple. When the house of the Chashmonai, the Maccabees, the Jewish army, defeated this big, giant Greek army, they came into the temple, Batku, they searched, they found only one cruse of oil, that was lying, hidden, and it had upon it the seal of the high priest. Only enough to light and burn. For 1 day, there was enough oil for the menorah to burn for 1 day. Yet, Nasabaynes, a miracle happened, says the Gemara, Vidliku mimenu shumoyne yomim, and the candles, the menorah, the oil burned for 8 days. Shana Cheres, the following year, Kavum Asum Yomim Tovim Bahal Veida, the following year they established the holiday, the Halel Veida, through praise and acknowledgement, or acknowledgement and praise. Halel Veida. This is the holiday. This is the Gemara. Now to elaborate on this, and to speak about the miracle of Hanukkah. Primarily on the holiday of Hanukkah, we celebrate 3 miracles. Number 1, the miracle of the victory of the war. Number 2, the victory or the miracle that we found 1 cruse of oil that was kosher with the sign and the signet of the high priest. And number 3, that even though it was enough to last for 1 day, it lasted for 8 days. Now the question comes to mind, why do we need 3 miracles? 1 miracle should be enough. If already they won the war, which was a big miracle, a small little army, the Maccabees, against this major Greek Syrian army, that alone was a major miracle. That calls for a holiday. We don't need anything else. Why does God have to make an additional miracle that they found the cruse of oil that was not contaminated, that was still kosher, that had the sign of the high priest? Furthermore, if already you're making a miracle, make a complete miracle. They could find a big barrel of oil, enough to last for 8 days. Why only that it lasted for 1 day? Really, now the miracle happened that it began to light for 8 days. Make 1 miracle, you find 1 cruse of oil, there's enough oil for 8 days, and they celebrate an 8-day Hanukkah holiday. So the answer is like this. The Jewish people fought a spiritual war. There was no official decree upon the body of the Jew. Like, for example, the holiday of Purim. There was a decree by Haman to destroy and kill and annihilate, God forbid, every Jew, man, woman, and child. Similarly, the Holocaust was to eradicate the entire Jewish nation. This was not the decree in Hanukkah. The decree in Hanukkah was Lashkicham Todesecha, to make the Jewish people forget about your Torah. That was the decree, the prohibition of learning Torah. Now, the Jewish people, what they could have done was, like in other times in history, during the time of the Namba, when the Almohads wanted to convert the Jewish people to Islam, or during the Spanish Inquisition, when they forced the Jews to convert to Christianity, or during communist Russia, when they wanted the Jewish people simply to do nothing, to become atheists. So in all of these times throughout history, what did the Jewish people do? What was the Jewish response? You go underground, you become hidden Jews, you become Maranos, you become Anusim, which means outwardly you're not Jewish, but inwardly in the house, underground, you begin to live as a Jew. And theoretically, that would have been enough for the period of the Syrian Greeks. But yet, what happened was, the Jewish people went on self-sacrifice. They decided, no, this cannot be the norm. We cannot survive as such a nation. We have to go and fight against the oppressors. We have to fight against the Syrian Greeks. Why? Because we believe in God. We believe in Torah. And we cannot live without Torah. And therefore we're willing to die for the Torah. And so they fought this war. But this war was initiated by the Jews. When God saw this great love, and this great passion, and this great commitment that the Jewish people had to keep Torah openly and overtly, God performed a miracle to show his love to the Jewish people. And he allowed them to find one cruse of oil that was kosher, that was not contaminated, that had the seal of the high priest. Now, when it comes to self-sacrifice, there are two levels of self-sacrifice. There's the level of Rabbi Akiva and the level of Avram Avinu Abraham. Rabbi Akiva, who lived 120 years, and until the age of 40 could not read Hebrew, was very passionate about Judaism. And he would tell his students that the highest level is to die for the sake of God. And therefore he would say every day, Mosai Yovai Liyodai Bakimenu. He would say every day, when will come to my hand that I will have the opportunity to die for God. And therefore, when he finally was put to the task, and they put hot molten combs against his body and they flayed him alive, he was smiling. And the students said to him, Rabbi Akiva, how could you be smiling? He said, what do you mean? My entire life I waited to die for God. And now, finally, I have the mitzvah. In truth, when we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Lakeinu Hashem Echad, what should be the kavanah, what should be the intention? I'm willing to die for the sake of God. However, Chassidus says that Abraham's self-sacrifice was greater. Abraham did not say, I want to die for God. Abraham said one thing. Ayikra Sham b'shem Hashem keil olam. He called out in the name of God, God of the world. In other words, Atikra vayikra el vayakri. He caused others to call out in the name of God. That was his mission in life, to bring the entire world to understand monotheism, to bring the entire world to acknowledge and say, Baruch Hashem, thank God. If it demanded self-sacrifice, if it demanded that he had to give up his life, he was willing to do that too, but he wasn't looking for it. That's a higher level of self-sacrifice. And this higher level of self-sacrifice was the level that the Maccabees represented. This was the level of self-sacrifice that the Maccabees exuded. Why? They did not say we want to die for the sake of God. They said we want to live for the sake of God. But if that demands that we need to die, we're willing to die. And this is the self-sacrifice of Abraham. And because of this double level of self-sacrifice, not only the self-sacrifice of Rabbi Akiva, but even the self-sacrifice of Abraham, God bestowed upon them a double miracle. Number one, to find the cruse of oil. And number two, that this one cruse of oil that was enough to last only one day now had an additional miracle. It lasted for 8 complete days. Furthermore, comes the question to mind, the Gemara tells us, they found one cruse of oil with the signature of the high priest, which means a very, very high level of purity. Now we know today, you go into any supermarket, there are many different types of kosher signs. Just to give you a few, you have the OK, you have the OU, you have the CHK, you have CRC, different hashgachos, different rabbinic supervisions. Yet, the Gemara doesn't simply say they came in and they found one cruse of oil that was not contaminated. Okay, that was kosher. No, it had the signet ring of the high priest representing the highest level of kashrus, the highest level of kosher. Why? What is the message over here? And here, the Talmud is teaching us a very important lesson, and that is to connect to your mentors, to connect to the tzaddikim of the generation, to connect to your Rebbe, which we call his kashrus. What does that mean? The time of the war of Hanukkah and the Second Holy Temple, there was a dark cloud that hovered over the Jewish people. The dark cloud was the cloud of Hellenism. They wanted us to forget about your Torah and to remove the entire concept of mitzvot, of good deeds, of godly deeds from the Jewish people. And because of this, how does one push away darkness? Not with a broom, but you dispel darkness with a lot of light. In other words, with a lot of holiness, with a lot of kedusha. And therefore, only the seal of the Kohen Gadol was so strong and so powerful that it had the ability to transform this darkness into light. In other words, you see that the Syrian Greeks were able to come and conquer the Holy Temple. And we see that they were able to smash and destroy the altar. And furthermore, they were able to defile all the oil. But they could not in any way overpower the signet ring of the high priest. This was too holy for them. This was too strong for them. This was too godly for them. The other oils that had the other supervisions were able to become unholy. But the one that had the high priest could not become defiled. What is the lesson in our life? That when we find ourselves in a state of dilemma, in a state of depression, in a state of anxiety, in a state of disappointment, in a state of anti-Semitism, when we have challenges in this world, we have to connect with the Kohen Gadol. We have to connect to a high priest. And that high priest pulls us out of this darkness and gives each one of us a cruse of oil to be able to light our menorah. There's a story told that in the 1960s, a group of college students came to the Rebbe to interview the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And they asked the Rebbe, tell us, what is the meaning, the definition of a Rebbe? The Rebbe said, it's like this. You know, we're living here in Brooklyn, and each of the houses here in Brooklyn have lights. How do you turn on the light? You have a light switch. How does the light switch work? Beneath the house, beneath the ground, there are cables. And the cables go to a grid. So in essence, when you're turning on the light switch, what you're doing is you're allowing the current that's coming from the grid to go into the light bulb, and this gives forth light. He says that is the same concept of a Rebbe. What does that mean? Sometimes you come home at night and you can't find the light switch. You need someone to take you by the hand and to bring you to the light switch to be able to help you turn on the light. Mm-hmm. The same is true every single Yid. Every single Jew has this cable that connects to the grid. Every single Jew has a neshama. Every Jewish person has a soul that connects us to Almighty God. And therefore we have a personal relationship with God. The problem is we don't always know where the light switch is. We can't always find that way to turn on the soul. That's where a Rebbe comes in. When it's so dark that you can't even find the light switch, the Rebbe takes you by the hand and brings you to the light switch and allows you to turn on the switch to bring that light to you. And this is the meaning, to connect to the Kohen Gadol. This is the meaning of the one cruse of oil that can never be contaminated. By connecting to the Kohen Gadol, to the high priest, this is the way that we are able to have light and illuminate even the darkness. But the question still remains. The main miracle of Hanukkah, the main holiday of Hanukkah, is primarily because of the oil. Now, the oil represents the concept of wisdom, and especially the secrets of the Torah. The Razin Deraisa, the secrets of the Torah. How is it that the holiday that celebrates the secrets of the Torah is a rabbinic holiday? It's the holiday of Hanukkah that took place at the end of the Second Holy Temple. In other words, we have many other holidays. We have Pesach, we eat matzah. We have Shavuos, you eat blintzes. You have Rosh Hashanah, you blow the shofar. You have Sukkot, you sit in a hut. But none of these holidays are connected with oil. The one holiday that's connected primarily with oil is the holiday of Hanukkah, which is a rabbinic holiday, which came about many years later. But the answer is that the darker it gets, the more light we need. And therefore, even though the Torah was revealed to us already on Sinai over 3,300 years ago, however, as we go darker and darker into exile, more and more light is revealed. So, for example, on Chanukah, because of the darkness of the Hellenists, at this time, the miracle was with oil, which revealed the secrets of the Torah. But even that, at that moment, remained concealed. Later on in history, in the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Rashbi, he said it's a mitzvah to reveal the Torah, but only to his group, only to the inner circles were they allowed to learn the secrets of the Torah. Came the Arizal. He said now it's a mitzvah to reveal to everybody, but even then it has limitations. Then came the Baal Shem Tov, and he began to teach the Torah even to the simpletons. But it wasn't until Yutes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, that we celebrate today, when the Alter Rebbe came out of prison in the year 1798, after the printing of the Tanya, that this Chassidus, this secret, this oil, now became completely revealed to the entire world. So Hanukkah now comes full circle. It's in this month of Kislev, the darkest month of the year. It's also the third month from Tishrei, from Rosh Hashanah, similar to the holiday of Shavuot, when we receive the Torah on Sinai, which is the third month from Passover. However, now we are dealing with the secrets of the Torah that come to illuminate even the darkest nights. So in this month of Kislev, we had the holiday of Hanukkah, but we also have in our generation, in our era, the holiday of the 19th of Kislev, when the Alter Rebbe came out of prison. And when he was in prison, he asked his mentors, his teachers, the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, that already passed on years earlier. He said, why am I here? Why am I sitting in prison? I'm not a bad person. And they said to him, because you revealed the secrets of Razin the Razin, the secrets, the greatest secrets of the Torah. You revealed the oil of the Torah to the world, and the world was not ready yet for it.
Okay.
He said, if that is the case, am I supposed to conceal these teachings? Should I no longer teach these teachings? And the teachers of the Alter Rebbe said to him, on the contrary, now that you already broke through the floodgates, you should teach these teachings of Chassidus in a greater way, in a bigger way, ufaratsta, to spread it forth throughout the entire world. So this is the idea of Shemin, this is the idea of the oil of the Torah that was introduced already on Chanukah, but now becomes full circle on the 19th of Kislev. And to take this idea one step further, how is it possible that the Greeks were able to cause us to forget the Torah? What does that mean? How do they have that power? And the Rebbe makes a point of saying that seemingly it started already 100 years before the decree. 100 years before the decree that the Syrian Greeks brought upon the Jewish people. Talmai HaMelech, King Talmai, came along and he said, I want you to translate the entire Torah into Greek. We know this is called today the Septuagint. What did he do? He sequestered 72 rabbis in 72 rooms, and he said, translate the Torah into Greek. And they did. And the Talmud tells us they made certain changes based on prophecy, based on a miracle, that they all made the same changes. Because can you imagine, one of them would have made the change and the rest would have not, that rabbi would have got killed. So all of them made the same change. The Talmud says one of the changes they made was at the very beginning of the Torah. In our Torah it says, Bereshis bara Elikim, in the beginning created God. And they changed it to say, Elikim bara Bereshis, God created in the beginning. Why? Because they were concerned that Talmai would think there was a God by the name of Bereshis in the beginning. And beginning was the one that created God. So therefore they changed it in the Septuagint to say, God created Bereshis. God created in the beginning. Now it's interesting that on one hand, the only language that can truly translate the Torah is Greek. And this is already hinted by Noach. Noach says, Yafta likim liyefes, v'yishkan ba'al l'shem, which means that God will expand Yefes, or as the Talmud says, God will beautify Yefes, which is Greece, and he will find himself in the tents of Shem, which is the tents of the Jewish people. This was a gift that Noach gave to Yefes, that his translation of the Torah would be so beautiful that it would also be accepted amongst the Jewish people. Halachically, you could read a Sefer Torah in Greece, in Greek. So what's so terrible that he translated it? As the Gemara says, the day the Torah was translated into Greece, it was kashal Yisrael, kiyoyim shenasa ega, was as bad as the day that they made the golden calf. Yet, we find that the ultimate objective of Torah is to translate the Torah into all 70 languages, to all the languages of the world. So all the nations of the world should see the beauty of the Torah. As we know, it is the most brilliant and most intellectual book from all the nations. So what happened over here? So the answer is, first of all, they were forced to translate it. It wasn't that the rabbis did it on their own. They were forced by King Ptolemy to translate it. That was the first descent. For the next 100 years, the greatest philosophers of the world began to learn the Torah, because now it was in their language. And they began to decipher the Torah and analyze the Torah and truly, truly master the Torah. And we're talking about the greatest minds of the generation. Yet, what happened was, they removed God from the Torah. They said, this is an amazing book. It's very philosophical. It's very deep. It's very beautiful. But we don't need the God in the Torah. There is a concept of intellect. Intellect is the highest. We don't need to enter into a realm that's beyond intellect, which is God. And therefore they remove the God from the Torah. And this is the meaning that we say, Lashkicham Torah Secha. They wanted us to forget your Torah, not the Torah. Yeah, the Torah is okay, because Torah is the intellectual. But your Torah, God's Torah, this is what they tried to uproot on the holiday of Hanukkah. And therefore the miracle was pure oil. Because what is pure oil? Is there really a difference between oil and pure oil? Put oil into a candelabra, or put on the light. Put pure oil into the candelabra, also put on light. What's the difference? Aha! God showed them the difference. You see, non-pure oil can only last one day. Pure oil can last for 8 days. So God brought back the holiness into the oil. He brought back God into the Torah. There is a difference. And that is the miracle of Hanukkah. Not only that they lit the menorah for 8 days, but primarily it was lit with holy oil. And to the highest degree, the Kohen Gadol, the signature upon this oil was the signet ring of the high priest. Therefore, comes along the holiday of Hanukkah, it reminds us that each one of us needs to go to the higher standard. Even though, yes, it's okay to get away with the minimal. But Hanukkah reminds us we have to do the maximum. You go for the high priest, you go for the holiest levels. Who is the high priest? One who lives in Jerusalem, representing Yirei Shalom, a complete awe of God. One who sat all day in the holy temple, the holiest place on earth. This is what we need to do to bring more holiness into our life. And that is why we find that when it comes to the holiday of Hanukkah, it's also a triple header. Because really, you can fulfill the mitzvah by lighting only one candle for 8 nights. Each night you light one candle and you fulfill the mitzvah. You remind yourself that's the 8-day holiday. And it lasted for 8 days. So each night you remind yourself of this holiday by lighting one candle. Yet, we go beyond the letter of the law. And each night we increase a candle. Number 3, in addition to increasing a candle each night, each member of the family also lights a menorah. This is called mahadin mina mahadrin. Now, a person can argue, I'm not so religious. All year round, I do the minimal. I don't have to do the maximum. Comes along the holiday of Chanukah and says, yes, today each one of us becomes a Kohen Gadol. Each one of us becomes a high priest. Each one of us does the mitzvah in the most beautiful way to fulfill this mitzvah in the most complete, perfect, and most glorified way possible. They tell a story that the Baal Shem Tov, the holy Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism, once came to a city, the city of Slutsk. And there, they were starting a new synagogue. And he sat down on the stone which was brought to build the new synagogue. And he said that even this stone that was brought by people to erect a new synagogue is also holy, because it's done with love and affection. And after he spoke and inspired the entire crowd, a few of the great Torah scholars of Tzlutsk came over to him and said, Rabbi, tell us, what is this idea of Hasidism, this new secret of the Torah, this oil of the Torah? What's wrong with the old Torah? And they quoted him a verse. It says, Ki lekach toiv nesati lechem. God has given us a good thing. So why do we have to now learn this new insight, Chassidus, the oil of Torah? Baal Shem Tov said, I'm not coming to introduce anything new. I'm just simply coming to translate a simple verse in the Torah. You mentioned the verse, Ki lekach toiv nesati lechem. I've given you a good finding. What does that mean? Said the Baal Shem Tov, Ki lekach toiv nesati lechem. I gave it to you. But the rest of the verse goes on, Ki lekach toiv nesati lechem, toirasi al tazoivu. Which means, this is the first part of the Torah that God gave to you. When God gives the Torah to you, you could do what you want with it. And because of this, a person can forget the Nosei HaTorah, the author of the Torah. If you are taking the Torah to yourself, it's like the philosophers of the Greek world who took the Torah and translated it into their own philosophy. And because of this, you forget the giver of the Torah. Teirasi, when it becomes my Torah, God's Torah, al tazoivu, then you will not forsake it. In other words, you have to bring God into the Torah. And this is the real innovation of the teachings of Hasidism and the oil of Torah. And that is to recognize and to see God in every aspect of the Torah. Yes, it's true, Torah is intellectual. Yes, it's true, Torah deals with material, physical, and everyday laws of buying and selling and building, etc., etc. At the same time, we have to bring God into the Torah and pervade every aspect of Torah with God. And this is the shemen of the Torah, and this is the oil of the Torah. And finally, the reason why we have the oil of the Torah today is because we find ourselves now at the threshold of the coming of Mashiach. Mashiach is connected with the number 8, like 8 days of Hanukkah. As it says, the kinnor, the harp that Mashiach will use, and will be used when Mashiach comes, will be of 8 strings. 8 is beyond nature. 7 is nature. 8 is beyond nature. That's going to be the era of Mashiach. Which this is also the reason why right before Mashiach comes, it gets darker in the world, because the powers of impurity know that Mashiach is about to come, and there's going to be this light that's so powerful that will shine from one side of the world to the other. And therefore they're coming to fight against this light. But this fight brings out deeper powers within all of us. The ability to become stronger people, and more God-fearing people, and better Jews and better people, to do more good deeds and more mitzvahs. And with this in mind, we hope and pray that lighting the Hanukkah menorah, very, very soon we will see how the high priest will light the menorah in the third Beis Hamikdash, Mehera V'Meinu, Amen.
Amen.